Everyone. So Michael Jordan is the owner of the Charlotte Hornets, and he's been a better player than he was an owner or is an owner. There's a lot of questionable decisions. He's had two stints, obviously with Washington Wizards, which didn't last long. He ends up coming out of retirement, ends up playing, has to give up ownership, but even then, made some very questionable decisions, such as Kwame Brown, and then eventually ends up getting the Charlotte Bobcats that become the Charlotte Hornets. Once the Hornets name became available again, Michael Jordan wanted that, makes it the Charlotte Hornets again, and since then they really haven't had much success. They've had a couple playoff stints, but other than that, just not really much to write home about. They've been basically a non-playoff team or a play-in team that's got eliminated in the first round, and although there's a lot of hope and promise, right? Charlotte's got some nice young pieces, although they are just insanely salary cap strapped for a team that just isn't very good. You still got Rozier on a long-term deal. Gordon Hayward has another year on his contract. You got to figure out and pay P.J. Washington. On top of that, what are they going to do with Miles Bridges? A lot of questions this offseason, but we got some surprising news that Michael Jordan is selling his majority stake in the Charlotte Hornets, that he is in serious negotiations per Woj. So what Woj said is that Michael Jordan is in serious talks to sell a portion of his stake in the Charlotte Hornets, according to ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski. Jordan would retain a minority stake, so going from a majority to a minority stake in the franchise, but Gabe Plotkin and Rick Schnall would become the co-governors. And then for those that don't know, Plotkin is a minority owner of the Hornets now, so he's basically saying, like, hey, let me run the show here, would buy larger stake. And then Schnall is a minority owner of the Atlanta Hawks, which I don't believe, I could be wrong on this, but I don't believe you can own shares in multiple teams. So my guess is that Schnall would end up basically selling his share in the Atlanta Hawks for a larger stake in the Hornets. That's my guess, but I could be a little wrong on that. But regardless, I believe that he very likely would do that even either way. Like if you can get more stake in another organization, you do that. But again, the Hornets, they're in a very interesting position. They're in a very interesting spot, right? Obviously, they have LaMelo Ball, who is a great talent, young talent, guy that has a lot of promise. Although this year, there's a lot of questions, right? Lonzo Ball, we got reports today that Lonzo Ball might be out another season, which means he would miss essentially 2 full seasons almost of NBA games. That's not good, right? And now LaMelo is dealing with all kinds of injuries this season and has dealt with all kinds, and he's out for the rest of the season, needs surgery, all that stuff. So, we'll see how he holds up going forward. Hopefully, he doesn't follow his brother Lonzo's suit of just not being able to stay healthy and just questions in that regard. So hopefully it works out for LaMelo. They're a team that is still in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes, right? They're not one of the top teams, but they could easily jump. We've seen it happen before. It's not unlikely. It's not impossible. Also, even if they don't get Victor Wembanyama, there's still lots of pieces out there. You got Williams, you got the Thompson twins, you got Scoot Henderson, you got several guys that could easily come to this franchise and really kind of help this team. Right now, the Hornets are 4th in the tank race. So again, not impossible for them to move up in that race. But regardless, again, they're just going to have to make decisions in the offseason. Like, do you trade Terry Rozier? Do you, maybe Gordon Hayward becomes more valuable now as an expiring contract. So maybe teams would be more interested in trading for that to where maybe you get some more long-term pieces. Now, what are you going to do with Miles Bridges? That's a big, big question, right? Miles Bridges, he was a great player, but he had his little spat and, is the NBA going to suspend him if he signs? Like, we've heard reports for the last 3-4 months that he's signing this year with the Hornets and nothing has happened. So maybe the organization will look into solving that before once they actually get the sell through and all that stuff, assuming that it actually does go through, which, I don't think it would have been reported if otherwise. So that's my guess. But P.J. Washington, what do they do with P.J. Washington? They got to give him a new contract. Do they want to keep him? All of a sudden, you have 4 max guys, and you're not even a playoff team, right? Even with LaMelo Ball healthy, you're not a playoff team. So, what do? They start retooling? Do they start rebuilding? Maybe decisions get better made, maybe better draft picks, stuff like that. Like LaMelo was kind of like the no-brainer, right? Outside of LaMelo, not a ton to write home about as far as like draft guys that they've picked up. Again, Bridges has potential to be a really nice piece. PJ Washington has had his moments, but he's not like a guy that is game changing, right? He's a guy that's just like a solid complementary piece. He'd be a nice rotation guy from pretty much any team, right? But if they can get a big piece in this year's draft, now you have kind of your core guys that you're building with and kind of positioning for the future. You could now sort of put yourself in a better position. I said all season that the Hornets, I thought that they should have blown it up. I'm surprised they didn't. Get what you can for Kelly Oubre. You're probably letting him go at the end of the season. Like a team like the Lakers. I still don't know why. And I'm glad, as a Laker fan, I am glad this didn't happen, given the team and the trade that we pulled off. But from the Hornets' perspective, I don't know why you didn't just give, here, take Rozier, take Gordon Hayward, take Kelly Oubre, whoever you want. You want PJ Washington? Take PJ Washington. Take everybody. We'll take Russ and like Pat Bev or whatever. And there you go. And now the Hornets have a clean slate. Like literally, you'd have like the most money in the league. You'd have LaMelo Ball, who you got to pay soon too. And then you'd have whoever you draft. If you draft Victor Wembanyama, you got basically your core three and a ton of cap space, right? You'd have LaMelo Ball, you'd have Miles Bridges, and then you'd have Victor, let's say Victor Wembanyama or Scoot Henderson. That's really good, right? You'd have those three, and then now you can go look to maybe go sign some guys to put around and kind of get you out of that just terrible salaries and stuff that you have signed. Again, from a Lakers standpoint, I am very, very thankful that didn't happen, because that was a real thing that was talked about and on the table. But regardless, Michael Jordan, he's probably in his best interest at this point to kind of leave the decision-making in other people's hands. We've seen a lot of just great players take on front office roles and stuff, and it just doesn't work out. There's a big difference between like the behind-the-scenes stuff and like the player stuff. And so it's just Michael Jordan just hasn't really been able to figure that part out. He's still arguably the greatest player ever, but he hasn't been a very good owner and GM and decision maker for organizations. So I don't blame him. It's just more money. Why not? He's probably going to get paid, paid. He's already a billionaire. He's probably going to get another billion out of it. So he's in a great position for this, and I just think it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense for the Hornets. It makes a lot of sense for Michael Jordan. He could still advise on stuff and still kind of give his input on players and stuff and still be a face of the organization. So there's still a lot of benefits that he'll gain from just keeping some stake into it. So it makes a lot of sense. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? What do you think of Michael Jordan and him as an owner? What do you think of him now selling some stake and ownership in it and kind of going into a minority role? However you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. Let me know down in the comments below.